What happens when wrestling meets the rich history of Montreal? Let's talk AEW Redemption 2026. Hi, I'm Leah, feeling super excited today to dive into this topic.
And I'm Garrett. Can't wait to explore this event with you all. Welcome to Laid Back Learning with Leah and Garrett. All right, let's set the stage for this one. AEW Redemption 2026 took over the Bell Center in Montreal, and it wasn't just another wrestling show. It was AEW's first ever PPV in that city. That's pretty cool, right? Quick memory before we get into the details. I watched part of this one with friends at a local bar, and the room vibe was electric. You know those official watch spots like Dave & Buster's and Tom's Watch Bar? They had the show on, and it felt like being at the arena, just with more mozzarella sticks. Every near fall had people out of their seats. Strangers were fist-bumping like longtime tag partners. That communal rush is why these big wrestling nights hit different.
Let's open the book on this. First, quick definitions, so we're all on the same page. AEW stands for All Elite Wrestling, which is a major wrestling promotion with weekly shows like Dynamite and Collision. A pay-per-view, or PPV, is a special live event you purchase to watch. Think of it like buying a ticket to a one-night-only blockbuster. Redemption was one of those shows, and it packed 11 matches, including a pre-show slot they call 0 Hour, which warms up the crowd and catches latecomers up on the stories.
Here's a thought I've been turning over. Montreal matters here. The Bell Center isn't just big, it's a statement venue, and AEW planting a flag there says, hey, Canada is core to the game plan. Montreal's wrestling legacy goes way back, so bringing a first-time AEW PPV to that city feels like a nod to history and a push into the future. The show leaned into that with big production, cameras catching those epic wide shots, and entrances that looked right at home on a premium stage.
All right, on to the build-up. The road to redemption really accelerated in July. Picture this. In early July, a Dynamite special called Beach Break delivered two huge turning points. Kenny Omega, who many know as one of AEW's top stars, defeated MJF to win the AEW World Championship. It was presented as a last-chance scenario for Omega. If he failed, that window would have slammed shut. Instead, he flipped the script and walked into Montreal as champion. That's a story beat with real stakes and payoff. Same night, Willow Nightingale returned from a shoulder injury and won a casino gauntlet. That's AEW's staggered entry elimination match. Endurance really matters because fresh opponents keep cycling in. Winning earned Willow a shot at Thekla for the AEW Women's World Championship. I love that setup because it frames her as resilient. Coming back from injury and immediately punching a ticket to a title match adds heart to the rivalry.
Let's bounce over to the mid-July developments. First, Kevin Knight stepped up to challenge Omega for the world title at Redemption. Knight came in as the TNT champion, which is another singles title in AEW's lineup. It made the main event a potential double champion situation. I mean, talk about high stakes. Also that week, Andrade El Idolo earned a national championship shot at Mark Davis, adding another singles title clash to the PPV card. And the international championship scene heated up with Kyle Fletcher. After a defense against Commander, Fletcher tried to yank off Commander's mask. That's a huge sign of disrespect in lucha tradition, where masks are identity and honor. Konosuke Takeshita made the save, then Kazuchika Okada blindsided Takeshita, then Bandito, another masked standout, took both Fletcher and Okada down. Out of that chaos, Fletcher challenged Bandito for redemption. Multi-layered and messy in the best way.
Speaking of messy, here's where it gets really interesting. Chris Jericho revived his Painmaker persona. For anyone new, the Painmaker is Jericho's darker, more violent alter ego, usually a sign that a feud's gone off the deep end. He brought it back after Tommaso Ciampa blinded him with sand at Beach Break, and there was even a power drill scare that security had to stop. The rematch for Redemption? No holds barred. Minimal rules, weapons allowed, and action can spill anywhere. It's the right stipulation when you've crossed that line from rivalry into grudge.
All right, let's roll on with the middle chapter highlights. The Knight angle had real juice because he could have ended the night with both the World and TNT titles. That kind of cross-division twist reshapes everything. Meanwhile, the Painmaker presence made Jericho versus Ciampa feel like a powder keg with a lit fuse. And AEW did something smart on distribution. Traditional PPV on cable and satellite stuck around, which is great for longtime buyers and, like we said, bars. But they also offered HBO Max in the States at a subscriber-exclusive rate, which is not the most common path for wrestling PPVs. Plus streams on Prime Video, ppv.com, and YouTube, then MyAEW for regions outside the US and Canada. Access from a lot of angles, which, honestly, I'm down for that.
And to round out the broadcast side, the English announce team featured Excalibur, Tony Schiavone, Nigel McGuinness, and Taz. That's play-by-play plus color commentary, which means one voice leads the action while the others give context and character. For Spanish commentary, Carlos Cabrera, Alvaro Riojas, and Ariel Levy were on the call. Cabrera's a legendary voice, so that adds real gravitas. Ring announcing came from Justin Roberts and Arkady Ara, and referees included Aubrey Edwards, Bryce Remsburg, Paul Turner, Rick Knox, Stefan Smith, Brandon Martinez, and Mike Posey. 0 Hour was hosted by Renee Paquette, Mick Foley, and Jeff Jarrett. I like when pre-shows give you clean recaps and a vibe check before the bell.
All right, after all that build, now the payoff. Redemption's main event ended with Kenny Omega retaining the AEW World Championship over Kevin Knight. So the double champion scenario didn't happen. The World and TNT lanes stayed separate, which keeps both divisions moving with their own momentum. Over in the women's division, Willow Nightingale defeated Thekla to win the AEW Women's World Championship. That made Willow the first AEW Women's Triple Crown champion, which means she's held 3 distinct women's titles recognized in AEW's ecosystem. That's not just a win, that's a milestone.
And the grudge match delivered on the chaos. The Painmaker Chris Jericho defeated Tommaso Ciampa by submission in that no-holds-barred setting. A submission in a match with weapons and minimal rules is a sharp statement. It says the pain was personal, and it ended decisively. One more marquee result. The Young Bucks, Matt and Nick Jackson, beat Death Riders, which is the team of Jon Moxley and Will Ospreay. Stylistically, that was high-speed tag wizardry versus heavy strikes and global star power. 11 matches total, with one on 0 Hour, and when you stack all that into a first-time Montreal PPV, it feels like AEW didn't just visit, they staked a claim.
Why do you think the Montreal piece matters so much here? I mean, beyond the arena being huge and the crowd being loud.
Because it links legacy to momentum. Montreal has deep wrestling roots, and AEW choosing the Bell Center for a debut PPV signals respect for that history and confidence in their international growth. Also, strategically, it builds a Canadian footprint that they can revisit. The show's success creates a loop. Strong crowd energy feeds the broadcast entices future ticket buyers, and the venue prestige anchors it all. That's close to the heart of it. Okay, let's move on to a spicy question that bubbled up after mid-July. In the AEW International Championship story, how central were Kazuchika Okada, Konosuke Takeshita, and Commander compared to Kyle Fletcher and Bandito, who were actually positioned for the Redemption title match? We know Fletcher tried to unmask Commander, Takeshita ran in, Okada struck Takeshita, Bandito cleared the ring, then Fletcher challenged Bandito. The debate is about whether the others were key players or catalytic sparks. I'd argue for the multi-threaded approach being essential. AEW often layers stories, so one belt ends up at the center of a little constellation of rivalries. The mask incident brought in Lucha Honor, Takeshita and Okada escalated the danger level, and Bandito's run-in made the crowd invest in seeing justice. Even if only Fletcher and Bandito were booked for the PPV match, the others made the title feel like a magnet for big names. That's valuable heat.
I get that, and I love a good rabbit hole. But I kind of think clarity matters in the final stretch before a PPV. If Okada and Takeshita aren't actually slated to challenge, overemphasizing them can muddy who the real contenders are. For casual fans especially, it helps when the picture narrows cleanly. The run-ins are hype, for sure, but I'd rather the camera settle on Fletcher versus Bandito with a clear countdown clock, you know?
That's fair, but let me push back gently. The presence of Okada and Takeshita, even briefly, says the international title sits in a hot neighborhood. It sets future routes, maybe not for this PPV but for the next beat. When the audience senses multiple threats orbiting the belt, that anticipation sticks. So while it's a bit noisy, it's strategic noise.
Yeah, that checks out. Maybe the sweet spot is this. Use the ensemble to fire up the segment, then spend the last week or two spotlighting the actual PPV pairing with laser focus. That way you keep the future lanes open, but you don't lose the plot for the immediate match. I could get behind that idea.
Switching gears just a little. In pop culture terms, the Painmaker persona has punch beyond one match. It's a character switch that telegraphs violence and raises a feud's ceiling. Pair that with AEW's mainstream tie-ins like those official watch party broadcasts at Dave & Buster's and Tom's Watch Bar, and you've got a product that lives both on the couch and in social spaces. It's event TV with a built-in community night out.
Counterfactual time. What if Kevin Knight had beaten Kenny Omega and left Montreal as both AEW World and TNT champion? That scenario is wild. You suddenly have one guy holding two singles belts that anchor different lanes of the roster.
Let's unpack this. If Knight walked out double champ, immediate rematch pressure hits hard. Omega would have a strong case for a return match on the world title. Meanwhile, the TNT title is designed for frequent defenses and fresh challengers, so Knight's schedule would get intense. AEW might have to decide whether to keep both belts on him or have him drop or even vacate one to keep divisions balanced. Either choice creates drama. Vacating sets up a tournament, while losing one belt in a heartstopper keeps him credible with the other.
And fan reactions would be split in a fun way. Some folks love the chaos of a double champion because it feels big league and unpredictable. Others prefer clean lanes so more wrestlers get spotlight moments. Storyline-wise, you could run with Knight defending the TNT title under time pressure, then stumbling into the Omega rematch with the fatigue angle baked in. Or flip it, where he fights off Omega first, and then in the same week has to fend off a TNT shark. That's something to chew on, huh?
Real talk, I think the path they chose at Redemption, Omega retaining, kept things tidy, while Knight still felt elevated by the attempt. The near miss stores up sympathy and credibility. Next time Knight stands across from a champion, that memory kicks in for the crowd. It's got more weight than it seems.
Stay curious, folks.
Thanks for listening, and see you next time on Laid Back Learning.